Hello and welcome to this video where I will share my best building tips and tricks for the game Enshrouded. And when it comes to creative building and survival games, Enshrouded is in my opinion best in class and then some. It combines the limitless freedom of voxel building from games like Minecraft with all the possibilities of finer detailing, but also having a lot of pre-rendered assets that you can freely place without being limited to the voxel grid. And on top of that, the developers did a genius thing of not making all the voxel blocks look like traditional voxel blocks in voxel building games. Like what I think about when I think about building in voxel building games is very blocky looking stuff. And while a lot of the building blocks kind of look that way, the terrain does not. It looks a lot more natural. And nothing is stopping you from using the terrain as well when you build. And that leads me to my first building tip. Very early in the game you get both the terrain dirt and the terrain flower soil, and you can place both of those on your roof for very nice results. Start by removing everything from the roof except the gables. Then place the flower soil or the dirt or a mix of the two. You can then use roof tiles to cut away excess terrain material below the roof by simply placing roof tiles and then removing them again before you actually place roof tiles below the terrain as well to kind of form the shape of the attic. Later in the game you also find moss and snow that you can use in a similar way. Not only because it looks great, but also you can use it to hide steps that the roof tiles, ordinary roof tiles, will create in Enshrouded if you place them at a different inclination than 45 degrees. Like on this house for example, while the top is actually 45 degrees, so using ordinary roof tiles there would not have been a problem. The outer edges of the roof is a lot less steep and it would have created kind of a staircase looking shape if I had used ordinary roof tiles, which I don't think look very good, but using a mixture of grass and moss I hit it all and I think it looks a lot better. But you can of course do a lot more with terrain than that. Everything from creating your own small stone table and small sculptures to maybe like I have done here, building a huge tree to make a base inside of. Enshrouded can really be a pretty looking game with some breathtaking views. But while we're at the topic of hiding unwanted textures and unwanted blockiness, there are two areas that you quite quickly come across while building where not all textures look very good from the get-go. The walls and gables clipping through the roof is the first. If you want a grass roof, the problem is already solved, just put some grass on top and it won't show, but it can also be solved by simply placing another roof on top of the first one. Or by simply using more roof tiles, because some roof tiles when stacked on top of each other like a wall will create something that looks like a wooden wall, but with the benefit that it won't clip through the roof at the top but rather shape like a diagonal alongside the top of the roof. Use a different type of roof tiles however than you used for the roof itself, because if you don't you get these kind of small shapes alongside the edges of the roof that doesn't really look good, but if you use a different type you don't get those. The second thing you will find out quite early, and that I personally think doesn't really look good, is that especially the wooden textures when cut for windows and doors, it looks very rough. And that problem can also be mitigated using roof tiles because they look a lot finer cut along the edges. But there's also another way to solve that we will get back to a bit later in the video. But let's talk about the props, because apart from the terrain, the props are what will take your building from that Minecrafty blocky looking thing to the next level. Like I have done on this little house, using the crude wooden gates as support beams in several different places. Don't want to show the top of them? Well, just turn them upside down and bury what you don't need in the ground. Same with the flagpoles here, I didn't want to show the flags, so I put them upside down and used them as small support beams supporting a roof made out also prop, the wall tapestry showcase boards. Thanks to being able to rotate props freely, it can be used for so many things, like also for this little house, the Gable boards along the roof. Just take a shelf, rotate it in place and then the next one and the next one and the next one. It takes a bit of patience, but you get really great results. Remember those rough edges around windows and doors from the wooden building blocks? We can solve that with props as well, like a bunch of these little stuff, wall mounts. Just to rotate them in place and place them one after another around the window. And why not use a shelf as a windowsill? By the way, before moving on to more building tips and tricks, don't forget to like and subscribe if you like the content. And here is another useful trick when placing props. If you want to bury a prop partly into the terrain or into building blocks, you can first remove a few blocks, place the item, then use undo to put the building blocks or terrain back again. That way you can place back blocks even if they are partly blocked by the prop. This trick is actually extremely useful when creating unique flower pots. There are a bunch of prefabricated flower pots in the game, but why stop with that when you can plant pretty much anything into anything? Let's say you want to use this item as a flower pot. First, place down the soil. Now you might not be able to place down the prop exactly where you want it to because the soil is in the way. So remove the soil, place down the prop, then undo the soil back again, and now you can plant your seedling. A nice building detail you can use props for are rounded balconies. However, I have a really detailed explanation for how to make one in my guide to building a treehouse, so I will link that video in the description below. One thing that you will notice while playing and building in Enshrouded is that while lightning is really beautifully rendered in the game, the lamps, while looking good, are rather dim. If you need more light, a good way is to use the luminescent blocks for indirect lighting. This is especially useful if you build underground where there is no sunlight seeping in, because otherwise it will usually become very dark. They also come in different colors and you get the first one quite early in the game. If you just place enough luminescent blocks, you can get almost daylight level of brightness deep underground. And this is my best dirty little secret, because even if a village is really nice to look at, it's extremely inefficient to have your crafting people spread out like that, so here underground is where they actually live. Also, don't forget that a vast amount of different materials at your disposal create possibilities for extra detailing by simply mixing materials in your build. You can, for example, create really nice looking floors by making a tile work of different materials. Another thing that props are really good for is creating nice looking archways. Does this bridge look too Minecrafty for you? Don't worry, we can fix it with a simple coffin, or rather a bunch of them. First, put down some scaffolding so you have something to place them on. Then just place them and rotate them in place in the way you want them to create a nice looking arch. This, like a lot of the things you do with props, takes a little bit of patience, but the end result is well worth it. Once you're done placing all the coffins, just remove the scaffolding and adjust the bridge material to fit the new arch. We will have to repeat the same process on the other side of the bridge as well, but after that we will have a really nice looking archway. And you can of course apply the same principle for a lot of other archways as well. I should also mention that if you want to excavate a larger area, using the pickaxe takes a very long time. A much faster and more precise way is to place building blocks and then remove them again. This can also be used as a really good tool if you want to sculpt stuff out of terrain. And don't forget that not everything needs to be as it appears to be. Take this chimney for example. The chimney of the iron stove is not at all, but if we look inside it looks like they are connected. What is really happening, however, is that we actually use two iron stoves, one below and one above, but that is hidden by the inner roof. And finally, don't forget that on top of the vast selection of materials you got the decay and the overgrowth tool. With those you can add even more detailing and variation of textures on the existing materials, so the possibilities are simply endless. Well, that was all. Hope you enjoyed the video, and as I already mentioned previously, somewhere in the middle, like and subscribe if you did. It really helps the channel grow, because even though I feel kind of weird nagging and asking about it, it seems like YouTube kind of thinks it's important for how much it will show the video to potential viewers. So a good like and subscription ratio really helps, and apparently if you ask for it, it's more likely to happen. So there you go. Well, cheers.